I finished second in a office trivia a while back, and I, to this day, contend that the only reason I lost was because the other team cheated because they were the daughters of the guys that owned the store that was putting it on. So I'm pretty sure there was a little collusion there, but that's beside the point. Welcome, nerds, to another episode of the Nerds You're Looking For podcast. We are a weekly nerd culture podcast that discusses the culture through various segments. Of course, you can subscribe, rate, review us on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Spotify, basically whatever podcatcher you're listening to us on right now. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Those are both the @the_nerds podcast. And since you're listening to this, you're probably a pretty big movie buff. If so, you should definitely check out Letterboxd. Letterboxd is essentially just social media for watching movies. You can track, rate, review any movie you've watched. My account is @the_nerds podcast. My co-host is @thatTyler Hunt. I am joined, as always, by my lovely, lovely co-host, @Tyler Hunt. How's it going, man?
It's going pretty well, man. How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited. We're recording this a day early because I am going to a Blink-182 concert. I'm a big Blink-182 fan. I guess I'm going to contradict what I just said by saying that this is actually my first concert of theirs. But so I guess I'm not that big of a fan, but I grew up on their music, and I'm definitely looking forward to it. So we had to move a few things around to accommodate for the fact that I'm going to be out in Indianapolis tomorrow. I mean, again, how time works, you're going to hear this and this is already passed. So,
Yeah.
But I'm definitely looking forward to it.
Nice, man. Yeah, that's exciting. My wife and I saw them a couple years ago. Ironically, in Indianapolis, they came back through pretty quickly, but it's a good show. So I'm sure they've changed it up since then, but I think you'll have a good time.
That was pre-new album, correct? When you went and saw?
No, that was post new album. It was
Okay.
the
That makes sense.
For the new album, yeah.
So I mean, I love the new album. I love they had like I don't know if it's like a deluxe edition or whatever, but they basically had a second side to the album, and that's also pretty good. So yeah, I've been listening to that the last couple of days. Obviously, I've listened to it enough, but I just kind of like to. Obviously, this is not a unique thought, but I always like to listen to stuff for the band that I'm going to see. So I've been listening to that the last couple of days, and yeah, it's gonna be a good time. I am. It's so stupid, but I am also excited because I am going with a couple of buddies of mine, and one of them has offered to drive. And so I'm
Nice.
like more excited about that. Like it's like I'm usually the guy that drives because honestly, it doesn't really bother me that much, but it's kind of a nice thing that I don't have to worry about.
Yeah, I think I'm the guy that would prefer to drive, to be honest.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I get it. I get why they would volunteer.
Yeah, I mean, I'm usually the guy, and it's Mike from The Obsessive Viewer, who I've been good friends with for a long time. And when we go to Bears games, usually once a year, and we went to the Indy game where the Bears played Indianapolis, and I drove. We're going to Cincinnati when the Bears play Cincinnati in Cincinnati. I'll be driving, I assume, during this. So like I typically drive, and so when he offered, I was like, hell yeah. And so
Yeah.
it's like I'm excited for the concert, obviously, but it's also kind of nice to. And I'm always like when it's my wife and I'm always the one that drives.
Sure.
Whether it's we drive to wherever we're going, or if we fly, obviously we rent a car and I'm the one driving. So it's kind of nice to do a little like mini road trip, and I don't have to drive. So I'm definitely excited about that. I'm excited about the concert. I took the day off after the concert, so I'm gonna have
Nice.
a day off following it. So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to it.
Nice, man. It should be fun. Did you say you are or aren't going with Chrissy?
She is not going. No,
Okay, gotcha.
she had zero desire.
Really?
Yeah, it's odd. So it's kind of funny because that's one of the things that we like bonded over initially when we first started dating. I mean, when you're kind of like feeling each other out. And one thing that we really bonded over was our love for, like, we have a very like shared interest in music, but it's strange, like she likes certain bands that I'm just like, yeah, that's not for me. And Blink 182 is one of mine that she's like, I am not interested at all in them. But for the most part, our Venn diagram of bands we like are pretty much overlap, but there's a couple that she doesn't really like, and Blink is one of those. And I mean, she has a point, and I do to a certain extent agree with her on some of it, but I was also a kid when I started listening to them. They still kind of do it, and it's still a little annoying. I think their most recent album is a lot better about this, but they're closing in on 50 years old,
Yeah.
and they're still talking about the same kind of stuff that they talked about when I was like a teenager. And it's just like, come on, guys. You're 50 years old. I get it. Like, this is your job. You're trying to write hits and stuff like that, and that's how you make your money, and I get that. But I would like to see you grow a little bit, and that's one of the reasons why I love the newest album, because it does feel like they touch on some heavier shit.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree with that. Let me ask you this: would you ever go to a concert by yourself?
I've considered it. I never done it personally, but I've definitely considered it before, because I honestly, it's not quite the same as going to see a movie by yourself, which is obviously something I do all the time. Honestly, I'm to the point where I would say 95% of the movies I see every year, I'm by myself. And so like it's less common for me to go see a movie with somebody at this point. But I mean, it's not like Chrissy and I could talk to each other when we go. It's just that that's something that we both enjoy doing. So it feels like it's kind of silly for the two of us not to go to the concert. She's just not interested in it. And I have a couple of buddies, actually, one of which, and I should have mentioned this before I mentioned how excited I was about not driving. I literally, one guy that I was like really good friends with in college, I haven't seen him in probably a decade. He's going because he lives in the same, like, I mean, it's a suburb of Indy is where the concert is, and he lives in that suburb. And we kind of lost touch after college. And so I'm very excited to hang out with him again. So I should have, again, mentioned that before I mentioned how excited I was about not driving. That should have been the thing I mentioned before that. But yeah, it should be a good time.
Cool, man.
Yeah. I also invited Tyler, but he decided he didn't want to go.
That is true. I just decided I didn't want to go at the time. I thought about buying lawn tickets, but this week actually turned out to be a very busy week at work, and so I have a work dinner tomorrow night I have to go to, and so you needing to change nights actually ended up working out quite well.
Oh, cool. Yeah. So I didn't feel, I always kind of feel guilty about it, especially because I feel like we just gotten into a rhythm with Wednesday night. And then I was like, oh, by the way, that concert that I invited you to like 3 months ago is this coming Wednesday.
No, I had kind of kept tabs on it, but as we got closer to the date, like there's a big work event on Thursday as well,
Sure.
hence the dinner on Wednesday night. And so it would have been almost impossible to go at this point.
Yeah. I mean, that sucks, but I mean, you've got to see them before. So I have
Yeah, yeah,
not.
yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah,
I'm definitely looking forward to that.
yeah. I hope you get good weather and you guys don't sweat your nuts off.
Yeah, I am a little bit nervous about that. I'm also an old man, and we did get lawn tickets because that was the only ticket that wasn't like $1 million. And I'm a little bit nervous about that because I don't usually, I don't remember the like last time I sat for a long period on fucking grass. So I'm kind of a bougie boy. I guess I don't know why not sitting on grass or not sitting on grass makes you a bougie boy, but I guess I am.
I hope your back holds up.
Yeah, I am kind of nervous about that, but I mean, I'll survive. It'll be fine. But enough about that. Let's jump into this episode. If this is your first episode, we kind of use this first segment as an excuse to just kind of check in with each other. We call it what we're into. So what are you into this week?
I went and saw the movie that at one point I assumed we'd be reviewing this week because it was on my radar for positive reason. But the movie I'm alluding to is The Long Walk. So I had seen the trailer for this earlier this year. It's a Stephen
Yeah.
King story I'm actually not familiar with. So the
Yeah, I had
concept,
never heard of it before either, before I saw the first trailer.
yeah. So I'm interested in reading the book now, but the concept of the movie really caught my attention. So if you're unfamiliar, it's a dystopian future where I think it's once a year, 50 men voluntarily sign up to do the long walk. And the long walk is a race with no finish line, as how they refer to it in the movie. So each of these 50 men, honestly, they're more like boys, they have to walk at a speed of 3 miles per hour. They wear like a sensor on their wrist that says how fast they're going. And if they drop below 3 miles per hour, they get a warning. And if they get 3 warnings in an hour, they get killed by gunshot. So the other aspect to the 3-point warning system is that for every hour that you don't get a point, if you have any warnings or points, they get erased. So you can get rid of your points as well. But essentially, these 50 guys signed up knowing that the race is over when one person's left standing. And so the reward they get if they're the last person is they get this inordinate amount of money that they never put a dollar value to. And they also get the grant, like they get a wish is what they call it, but it's not like a genie situation. It's just like,
Sure.
something that the government can make happen. So in this dystopian society, like the U.S. has fallen into poverty, and Mark Hamill plays this guy called the Major. And I don't know if he's supposed to be like the president or if he's just high up in the government. Again, they never really get into specifics of the world building here. But basically, he does this long walk every year because after the long walk's over, the United States sees this spike in production from its citizens. And he says that, if everybody works harder, it can restore the U.S. to the power that it once was. And that's about as much world building as you get here. But so seeing this movie and knowing it's Stephen King and knowing the concept, I was really prepared for a horror movie. I didn't think that it was going to be scary per se. Maybe a thriller is the better word here. But it's actually it's more of a drama in a lot of ways. Like, don't get me wrong. This movie, as you watch it, you're very tense the entire time. Like these kills, not every single one of them is gory per se, but it's not like, it feels very intentional when one of the guys gets killed. And obviously, given the climate of the United States the last few weeks, like gun violence is a real thing. So in that sense, it is scary. But what caught me off guard with this movie is actually the value that it has from a dramatic standpoint. The amount of character building they're able to do with a group of dudes that's just walking in a straight line together is outstanding. And so, you almost have this pit in your stomach as well while you're watching it, because the movie starts off with who I would call, I guess you'd call him the main character. His name is Peter. He gets dropped off by his mom, played by Judy Greer, for the race. And then from there, it's just meeting the guys. And the pit in your stomach comes from the standpoint that if everything goes according to plan in this movie, you're going to watch 49 of them get shot.
Yeah.
And there's that thought in your back of your mind that maybe that won't happen. But once you get to the first kill, like it's a pretty sudden shift in tone. And I think that's a really condemnable, not condemnable. It's a really
Commendable.
Commendable. Thank you. Really commendable aspect to this movie is the amount of character work that they're able to work into it. That you don't get to know all 50 of the guys intimately, but there's a good chunk of them that you get just enough backstory to that, it hurts a little bit when they meet their demise to see it and to see how desperate they all are for the money. And, it's interesting. There's these friendships that are formed, these bonds that are formed along the walk. There's the dichotomy of whether you should help somebody or not help somebody as you're going, and they're able to flesh that out quite a bit. And so I was on the edge of my seat for this movie for a lot of reasons. Like they got me invested in the characters. Obviously, it's a high anxiety situation, and I felt that anxiety. And it's a good story too. Like it keeps you invested in who's going to win and what's going to happen. And yeah, there's never a dull moment. I'd be curious how good it is upon rewatch once you know the beats. But first time watching it completely sucked me in. The performances, as you can probably imagine by what I've said so far, are really great. You don't get good character work without good performances. Like otherwise you don't care, right? So, this movie has some people that I was kind of familiar with. Obviously, Mark Hamill is in it, and he's absolutely great as the major. He's doing his gruff voice impression of what an army major like that would be like, and he's definitely the villain of the movie in a way, but also his role is almost more of a cameo. He pops up throughout it, but I'd be curious to count up the actual screen time he gets. He's used sparingly, but when he's used, it's heavy. And so, can't say enough stuff about what he brought from just an aura standpoint to this movie and his performance. But, Drudy Greer has a small role. She's only in 2 scenes in the movie, but obviously, as I mentioned, she's one of the character's moms, and so she's expected to act emotional. And so the only time you see her in this movie is when she's on the edge, and she delivers that in the limited screen time she gets really well. But the boys, like all of the boys, are portrayed really well too. I was surprised to see the kid that played Jojo from Jojo Rabbit in this movie. He's growing up. Cooper Hoffman plays Raymond, who I would consider to be the main character, at least one of the 2 main characters. He's the underage kid from Licorice Pizza. So as much as I had problems with that movie, like he was great in that, and he's great in this. But the list goes on and on, man. David Johnson, I would say, is probably the other lead in this movie, and he's from Alien Romulus. He plays Andy in Alien Romulus, and he's fucking awesome in this movie too. So if you can't tell by now, this is something that I was honestly expecting to be good. It's Rotten Tomatoes has a 93% last I saw, and it is really good. Like it met my expectations. I was almost at a 4.5 with it even, but I've kind of talked myself away from that. I think one of the reasons I'm going to go with a 4 is because of what I brought up earlier with the watchability. And there's a couple beats at the end where things just didn't feel right in a way, without spoiling anything, but they're really minor defects or faults to the movie. And so it's a 4 out of 5 for me. And right now it's in the back half of my top 10 for the year.
Yeah, that's really exciting to hear because it's definitely a movie that I was excited to see. I mean, I didn't really know anything about it. Like you mentioned earlier, it is a Stephen King novel, or it's based on a Stephen King novel, but it wasn't one that I was also familiar with. And so it was one that I was definitely looking forward to. I didn't know anything about it until I saw the trailer. I will say that I have seen the trailer so many fucking times, it feels like, before every single movie. And I will say, this is a slight nitpick. I have 2 slight nitpicks. One that's more just trailer related, and that is the fact that they play that stupid country Last of My Kind song, which I hear so many like cut and paste generic redneck guys play in their pickup trucks all the time, and I'm just like, dude, you're like one of a million. You're not the last of your kind. You're literally just like a cut and paste person that I see like all the time. But that's neither here nor there. That's just my issue with that particular song. I fucking hate that song. But anyways, my second slight nitpick is I just thought it was kind of odd that the guy that did this movie, the director of this movie, is also the director of the later Hunger Games movies. And for me, this has a very like striking resemblance, at least in tone, to those movies. So it just kind of feels a little odd that his like entire career, the last like decade, has been like these types of movies.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought the director up because I had considered bringing up his filmography and my bit there, and I didn't. But it sounds like you've looked at it. It's pretty scattered.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of consistently good movies, and so I that's another feather in his cap. Like this, looking at his filmography, this is the best movie he's directed for sure.
Okay, cool.
All right, what are you into this week?
Well, I mentioned it yesterday, or not yesterday, the last episode, that I had started watching The Paper, but we hadn't finished it yet. And it was something that I was really looking forward to talking about in the next episode. And that's this episode. And I have finished it, which, of course, The Paper is the Office spinoff series. And I'm going to just say, kind of get this out in front. When I say The Office and when I say the original series, when I'm talking about The Paper, I mean the US Office. So let's just move on. Like, I'm not going to keep saying US Office, US Office. Like, that's what I'm talking about. So, like, I just wanted to make that very clear before I get into it. So, the original Office was created by Greg Daniels, who also created The Paper as well. He co-created The Paper, I should say, with a guy named Michael Coman, who isn't a name that I had heard before, but then I looked up his filmography or his like IMDb, and he's written for a lot of shows that I like. He wrote for Conan O'Brien, like his late night show. He wrote for SNL, among other shows that I like. He's also has a loose tie to the original Office series. He's actually married to Ellie Kemper, who is Aaron in the original series, so he does have a little bit of a tie to the original series as well. The Paper is streaming on Peacock, so if you have Peacock, I think I say this every year, I don't love Peacock. It's fine, but the last 2 years, they've done a Black Friday sale for an entire year for like $20. So if you could just wait until then, just sign up for the whole year. I just literally do it every year, and I just get Peacock for the entire year for $20, which is plenty worth it. I mean, well, we'll get into it, but I think it's worth it just to have shows like this, like The Paper, every so often. So, yeah, definitely kind of put that on your radar that I'm not affiliated with Peacock. I don't know if they're going to continue doing it in perpetuity, but it does seem like the last couple of years they've had that deal. So just keep an eye on that. Anyways, back to The Paper. The Paper follows the same documentary crew that filmed Dunder Mifflin 20 years ago, who want to circle back to check in on their former subjects. It turns out that Dunder Mifflin has been sold to a paper conglomerate in Toledo, Ohio. The crew then travels to Toledo to discover that one of the things this company owns that bought Dunder Mifflin is the Toledo Truth Teller, a well-known but struggling newspaper. It so happens, coincidentally, that the day the crew arrives is also the first day of the paper's new editor-in-chief, Ned Sampson, who's played by Donald Gleason. So I don't need to tell our longtime listeners how much I love The Office. It is literally my favorite show of all time. Easily the series that I've seen the most, I've rewatched the most. I've bragged that I finished second in a Office trivia a while back, and I to this day contend that the only reason I lost was because the other team cheated because they were the daughters of the guys that owned the fucking store that was putting it on. So I'm pretty sure there was a little collusion there, but that's beside the point. Anyways, I love this series. I watch it all the time, every so often. I love that. Again, I'm not trying to sell you Peacock because they're not sponsoring this or anything, but they do have the fan episodes where they include all the outtakes and stuff, and they cut them into like a super cut episode, and so those are always cool to watch every so often. So I was kind of nervous about this show going into it, but I like Greg Daniels' sense of humor. I've seen his some of his other shows, and like I respect him as a comedian and a showrunner. And so if he thought this show was worth doing, he's one of those guys I'm just going to give the benefit of the doubt. Not that my opinion was going to change the fact that they were going to do the show or not, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I was willing to at least watch it and be hopeful that it was going to be good. And I do want to be upfront about the discourse around paper, at least the discourse I'm seeing around the paper. And I'm going to kind of talk out of both sides of my mouth here. And I just want to be upfront about that. I think in general, comparison is the thief of joy when it comes to this show and many things in life. And I've been seeing a lot of people complain about how essentially this show sucks in comparison to the original Office. And of course, I take a lot of things I see on the internet with a huge grain of salt because most people are just playing the internet game where there can't be any medium takes. Like you have to have a hot take about everything. And so I get that that's kind of them playing the game and trying to get the clicks. But in my opinion, The Office is the best sitcom of all time, and it is my favorite TV show of all time. And so, is The Paper as good as the greatest sitcom of all time? No, but there's a lot of room between the GOAT and a bad show. Like, there's room for other shows to exist in that huge like valley. And so I didn't expect it to be the best show of all time. Like I didn't expect it to compete with that. I just wanted it to be a funny show that was also good and had the character development and made me kind of root for these characters like the original show. This is where I'm going to be a little hypocritical because I don't like those types of comparisons, but I'm definitely going to compare the paper to The Office because it is a spin-off series. It is co-created by the creator of the original series. It obviously has the same style to it that The Office does, but I do think that there's a difference between that and trying to say that it sucks because it's not the greatest sitcom of all time. Because I think you're outside your mind if you thought going into the show it was going to be that good. And as you could probably tell by my tone and how I'm setting this up, overall, I'm happy with the first season of The Paper. Is it the best show of all time? Again, no, but it still has some positive things going for it. It's already been renewed for a second season, which I think is good because it is doing the Greg Daniels thing. One of the things that are kind of a highlight for me with his shows, especially The Office, but his shows in general, is he does that thing that I always really like in TV shows, whether it's a sitcom or drama or whatever, is you kind of have to get me in with your hook. They already had me with the hook because it's an Office spinoff show. And they definitely established the new rules for this show versus the original show and kind of how it's going to go from here on out. But they also introduce a lot of side characters and slowly they start to peel back those layers through like B and C stories in these different episodes. And it becomes less about a particular like star character or star characters, and it becomes much more of an ensemble. And I like all of these little characters and I get really invested in all those characters. Now, obviously The Office did that really well because they had 9 seasons to do it. This only has 10 episodes. So it doesn't have quite the character development that a show obviously that's been on for forever would have, but I'm starting to already get invested in some of these side characters. Now, some of that has to do with the cast. I think they all do a really good job. I personally, and I think I might have done this shout out already when we talked about a trailer for this show, if I remember correctly, but I'm a huge fan of Alex Edelman, who is a stand-up comedian. I think he won an Emmy or Golden Globe for whatever, for his stand-up special. And he's awesome. Like I've liked his stand-up for a long time, and he plays kind of the lovable dummy, again, kind of comparing it to the original series. Not quite the same character as a Kevin, but sort of like the guy that isn't super sharp, but is in kind of dumb in a very lovable way. But I mean, the entire ensemble cast is great as well. But the main focus in this show is the Toledo Truth Teller, most notably its editor-in-chief, played by Donald Gleason. And I've talked about this, I think, when we discussed the trailer months ago. Part of the charm of the original series is, like I said earlier, you just love these characters. And you wanted to root for these characters, but they also they had this weird dynamic because you knew that they worked in this dying business model. They worked for this paper company that's getting, not only do they work in a paper company where people don't use paper that often anymore because of emails and technology and so on and so forth, but also they worked in kind of a dying business model. Like nobody has like salesmen that go out on like cold calls and stuff like that. That's just not a thing. You just go to Staples or Office Depot or whatever. And that was a thing in the show, is like it would always kind of, that's what obviously what it made it a sitcom, is because it would kind of always put them in situations where they had to kind of defend and justify their existence. And so that was always, it always put these characters that I wanted to root for in these really tense and interesting situations. And I loved that they found a way to kind of replicate that, make it familiar, but not exactly the same thing. So yes, they were able to kind of choose a paper adjacent type of job, but it's not the same thing as being a paper company. They work for a newspaper, which is obviously paper adjacent, but it's not exactly the same thing. But as you know, because of the internet and everything else, like nobody fucking reads newspapers anymore. And so he's kind of like the editor in chief, Ned, is kind of doing, is kind of fighting a losing battle, so to speak, because he's trying to resurrect this well-known paper, but nobody reads newspapers anymore. So there's definitely, it has that same, I guess tension is not necessarily the best word, but it's the only word I can think of right now. So that's what I'm going to go with. It kind of has that weird dynamic where you want to root for the characters, but you also kind of know that they're fighting a losing battle. So I definitely appreciated that. And I also appreciated the fact that they do kind of tackle some of the stuff that I'd imagine. I've never worked for a real newspaper. I was on the newspaper in my high school, but that was the extent of my newspaper experience. But I'd imagine there's a lot of, because nobody reads newspapers anymore, there's a lot of like, you have to sell ads, and you have those like clickbait articles that are just trying to like get you to look at ads and kind of sell you stuff. And it kind of, there's a couple of moments where they kind of bust the balls of those types of websites, and they do kind of do a little bit of satire where they talk about navigating those two, like the business element of running a newspaper, but also like the journalistic element of running a newspaper. And so I thought that was kind of interesting. I mean, at the end of the day, it is a sitcom, and so they still have to tell jokes, and it doesn't get super serious, but I do appreciate that there's at least a little bit of satire in it as well. There's also, as you would expect in an Office spinoff, there is a Michael Scott type of character, which is obviously one of the main reasons why that show took off the way that it did. But it's not who you would think. Donald Gleason's Ned is actually a good boss who has a lot of respect for his coworkers and has a lot of respect for good journalism and wants to do a great job. He's not a perfect character. There's a couple of moments where he kind of loses his way a little bit, but that actually made me root for him more because it felt like he was figuring it out. Like we're all trying to figure it out. So it just made him feel more believable as a character. And it kind of made me root for the truth teller even more. They do have a Jim and Pam thing with his character and his best reporter Mare, played by Chelsea Free, who does a great job. She has that Jim stupid face at the camera thing down already, and they're only 10 episodes in. So she definitely does that Jim look at the camera thing that everybody loves from the original series, and she's already got that down. So I definitely appreciate that. Call me a sucker, but I bought into their will they, won't they relationship pretty quickly. And honestly, maybe it's just me. Maybe I am just a sucker because my wife did not like that at all. She did not like the Jim and Pam thing that they were trying to go with their relationship. So again, maybe I'm just a sucker for rom-com stuff, but I dug it immediately. I am a little curious, and I don't know how they're going to tackle this moving forward. I am kind of curious how they're going to navigate that relationship moving forward, because it is kind of weird because he is her boss. He is a man that is her supervisor, and that can bring some interesting dynamics to say the least. So I'm curious to see how that's going to be navigated moving forward. But the Michael Scott of the paper is for sure Esmeralda Grant, played brilliantly by Sabrina Impaccatori. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce her name, but I gave it a shot. I should have watched the Emmys. I don't know if you're going to talk about it on Nerd News, but I think she got nominated for her character in this show in the Emmys. So I should have watched it at least so I could hear somebody else try to pronounce her last name, but I didn't do that. So, well, I don't know if she won or not, but I'm pretty sure she got nominated. But she is at times, most of the time, I should be honest, she's kind of a cartoon character. But they do a great job, as they did in the later seasons with Michael Scott, of humanizing her as well. There's especially a good episode where it turns out she got catfished, and that's a really, really funny episode. But it also kind of, like I said, it makes you feel for her and it makes you root for her. And she has by far the funniest line of the show for me. And they get mad because this kid that runs his own like news website is like trolling her and Ned, and they both kind of team up. It's like one of the few times that they team up, especially early on in the show, because they're kind of butting heads at the beginning. And she literally, and I'm not going to do it justice because you don't have the context, and she's a brilliant actress, and I'm really bad at acting, as Tyler, who has directed me in a short film, knows. I'm really bad at acting. But anyways, she basically says that she threatens to give the kid Lyme disease, and she says, I think I have the right ticks. And I was literally in tears laughing. It was so fucking funny, like how absurd it is threatening a teenager with Lyme disease because you think you have the right ticks. That absurd line just, I mean, I was like literally crying, laughing so hard. So it's like she kills it as this Michael Scott type of character. So I definitely appreciate that. I will say that I've been pretty clear about how I feel about legacy sequels on past episodes, and we'll get to more of that when we talk about the Spinal Tap film for our main topic. But I would obviously classify this as a legacy sequel, even though it hasn't been that terribly long since the original series went off the air. I am happy to report that this show doesn't really rely too heavily on fan service. I mean, there is some of that, but most of it is in the first episode, and they kind of get away from that. Like literally, the show starts off with an interview, like a talking head with Bob Vance from Vance for Refrigeration, and he basically just explains what happened to Dunder Mifflin, and they kind of move on to the truth teller, and they kind of move from there on. And it's kind of, there's a couple of callbacks here and there. Now, Oscar is in this show. He obviously plays the same character. They even mentioned that they offered to move Phyllis out to Toledo, and they obviously didn't take them up on that. So Oscar obviously chose, when Dunder Mifflin got sold, definitely chose to go to Toledo. So he's kind of really the only connective tissue as of right now to the original series, but they don't really lean on his character, at least not in the first season. He kind of comes and goes, but he's not a major character in the first season, at least not in my opinion. So there's not a ton of like overly like fan service for the sake of fan service, which is one of the issues I have with legacy sequels. So I definitely appreciate that for sure. It's not a perfect season. There are stretches where it's not that funny, but most of the time I was at least chuckling or smiling or at least rooting for the characters. And there were a handful of times where I was, like I said, literally crying, laughing. So I'm going to give it 3.5 stars.
Cool, man. I haven't watched it yet, but I look forward to catching up on it at some point. I believe they're moving forward with the second season it was renewed for, so I'm sure there will be more.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, ready for nerd news?
Yeah, what do you got this week?
You brought up the Emmys, so let's go ahead and get that one out of the way. So I did not watch the broadcast myself. I caught some highlights the next day, but from a quantity standpoint, the studio did quite well.
Yeah.
So, some of the top shows to get awards were The Studio with 13, Adolescence with 9, The Penguin with 9, Severance with 8, Andor with 5, The Boys with 3. Those are more our genre, I guess, from a nerd standpoint. But yeah, the studio, I think, was the big takeaway, and it's a show that you and I both obviously liked quite a bit. So it was cool to see that win a lot. And then one of the other standout winners to me was Christina Milioti for The Penguin. I think we both sang her praises in that review, and mentioned how she should be rewarded for that performance, and she was. So I'm not familiar with all of the shows that won big this year. Like, I've never seen The Pit, never seen Hacks, things like that. But yeah, I'm glad to see that some of the stuff I liked this year won.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much just piggyback off of what you said. It seems like the things that I like won a lot. I mean, I was a big fan of the studio. I just don't watch network TV. I've heard really good things about The Pit, but I'm just that's one of the reasons why I don't really watch the Emmys too much. And I mean, I know we've been doing this podcast for a long time, and I know that we talk about this a lot, but it feels like I say this every year. It's just not. I'm a huge fan of I mean, I love TV, but it's just like the Emmys feels like, oh, it's just a bunch of shows that I don't watch are the ones that get nominated, and they always kind of feel like they pick a couple, and that's their like. I love the studio, and I'm glad it won a bunch, but it feels like it was like the show that they decided to pick, and it's gonna win every other category, and it feels like the Emmys is pretty bad about that, and so yeah, it's just I don't know, especially when it's not a show I watch. I mean, I watch the studio obviously, but like when I watched the Emmys in the past, it was like, oh well, if it's a show that I don't watch, then it becomes less interesting. But it's fine. Nate Bargatze hosted it, and I'm a fan of him. I hope that he did well. I haven't heard great things, but I personally didn't watch it.
Did you see The Bit?
I saw that he did something about the speeches. Is that the bit you're
Yeah.
referring to?
Yeah. So The Bit is that the night started out with $100,000 donation from him to, I believe it's the Boys and Girls Club. And so every single winner gets 45 seconds for their speech, and every second they go over, $1,000 is deducted off of that donation.
Yeah.
But on the other side of it, if they finish early, the number of seconds they finish early by is added on to the running total. And so I think from what I understand, it ended in the negatives, and Nate Bargatze and CBS donated like $350,000 to the Boys and Girls Club. And I thought it was cute. I thought it was a cute bit, but I did see this one post on social media this morning that was talking about how tasteless it was for a room full of rich people to have like a counter going for a donation to the Boys and Girls Club. And I can understand that. I figured that they were going to make a donation all along, and like I said, they did $350,000. So it was a joke for the night, but I can see how some folks might be sensitive to that.
Yeah, that was kind of always my point when I heard that bit. And I think John Oliver might have said something like kind of called it out from what I understand. I didn't see the clip, but apparently he was a little upset about that, and it's just like they were always going to make the donation regardless, but I know like there was like a meme that I've seen with like the Ellen DeGeneres show where she like would do that, and somebody called her out like, can't you just give up to charity either way? Like, and so that kind of feels like one of those things where it's like the PR is to just go ahead and give it to them anyways.
Yeah, no, for sure.
By the way,
Sabrina,
Sabrina,
please go ahead.
I'm not gonna mispronounce her last name again. I'm looking up. She was not nominated, so I don't know what I was looking at when I thought she was nominated for The Paper. But she was nominated for White Lotus, so maybe a couple of years ago. I think she was in the first season of that, so she was nominated for that. But I'm not
really
seeing
close,
anything
man.
for this year's Emmys. So maybe I just saw that and I just like put those two and two together in my head that she was obviously nominated for The Paper as well.
I mean, cut yourself some slack. It was just a few years ago in an entirely different show.
In a show that I've never seen before.
All right. Next story. They released a trailer for the upcoming Splinter Cell show they're doing on Netflix. It's kind of like an anime style. Did you by chance watch it?
I did not. If you played the games?
I played one of the games back in the day, but not any of the sequels.
Yeah, so I played the first two games. and I liked them. I mean, they were cool, but it was one of those series where it kind of went off the rails for me pretty quickly, and then they haven't done another game in a while, and so it's kind of one of those things that so many. It's almost like TV. Speaking of the Emmys, it's like there's so many good TV. Like if you take a while to put out a new season, it's hard for me to keep up. And I kind of felt that the same with Splinter Cell. It's like there's so many other video games that you like out of sight, out of mind sort of thing.
Yeah. Um, no, for sure. I don't know. I don't know that I'm patient enough for stealth games. I think this show looks fine. I don't know if it's up my alley, but I had forgot they were making it, and they sure as shit did. So
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a fan of anime series usually. I mean, I don't know
yeah.
if it's considered anime, but the League of Legends show Arcane was pretty good.
Mm, yeah. So who knows? They announced the sequel to. I'm trying to even remember what that movie's called. Super Mario Brothers. Jesus
Yeah,
Christ, or I guess they call it Super Mario Bros. But they announced the sequel. It's going to be Super Mario Galaxy. Is the sequel? All of the folks are coming back for that. They gave it a release date too, and it is soon.
yeah,
I I may be wrong, but I want to say it's next year. Yeah,
yeah,
sure as shit. It's next year. So that's like, what, 2 years after the original? 3 years?
yeah. So
I
I mean,
think
it's
for,
pretty quick turnaround for an animated movie.
yeah, for sure. But I don't know, man. That movie, I think we talked about it on the podcast at some point. I've watched it a couple times with my kids since. I think that it's fine. I don't think it's anything too special, but my kid likes it. A lot of other kids like it. So obviously they'll do another one, and it's cool that they're doing this version of that character.
Yeah, I liked it. It sounds like it. I liked the original movie a little bit more than you did. I thought it was really cute and fun, and it had a lot of cool callbacks to like OG Mario players like ourselves. And so I definitely appreciated that. I mean, the Chris Pratt thing, I mean, once you get out of the whole like, oh, he's going to do a voice and then it just sounded like Chris Pratt. Like once you get over that part of it, like it's fine. Because the other actors and actors that do voices for that movie do an amazing job, especially Jack Black is great in that movie. And what I really liked about this announcement is like there's so many things about like that they could dig into with the Mario franchise that I appreciate that they're just not giving us exactly the same thing. Like they could easily just print money and just make a generic sequel to the first one and have Bowser and have all this stuff in it and just kind of go with a cookie cutter sequel. And I like that they're kind of doing something a little bit different because there's enough to pull from with this franchise. I mean, they literally just had their 40th anniversary Nintendo Direct that focuses, and this is when they announced the sequel. And they had most of that Nintendo Direct was focused on being the 40th anniversary of Super Mario Bros. So they definitely have a lot to pull from. I'm hoping that maybe like the third movie will be a Paper Mario movie or something like that. Like it kind of feels like they could do that for each movie. It's just kind of like make it a different thing because there's so many different Mario movies or Mario things that they could pull from. Maybe we might get a Mario Tennis or Mario Golf game or movie eventually too. So like that stuff would be really cool. I'm
Yeah,
kidding
for
about the
sure.
Mario Golf stuff. I don't want to see a Mario Golf movie, but yeah, the Paper Mario movie would be dope.
Yeah, I mean you're absolutely right though. I think the possibilities, I don't want to say are endless, but they have a few different routes they can go for sure.
Absolutely.
All right. I believe that we talked about this at one point when it was a myth, but now it's reality. A24 is buying the rights to Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which is a property that is pretty far outside the content that they are known to put out. So I don't know what approach they'll take to it, being A24, but it could be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this. I mean, obviously, we talked about this story in particular when it was just a rumor, but we also kind of touched on this. I don't remember when it was because a lot of these episodes blur together. That's just how time works when you're an old person. Like things just kind of blur together. But they're kind of trying to do more like, hey, we're a business too, and we'd like to make money. Like, we're not going to
Yeah.
just spend money on like these artsy passion projects anymore. We would like to make some money as well. And so it does kind of feel like they're doing the Elden Ring movie, which I'm very excited for. So that obviously is going to
Yeah.
be a bigger swing for them. But yeah, I definitely think that this is kind of in that same vein where it's like, hey, we're gonna still do the passion project stuff, but we also kind of have to have the big budget, like big like audience, like a box office is the phrase I was looking for, that funds the rest of these passion projects.
Yeah, so I'm glad you bring up them wanting to make money, because that me bringing up that story I think is interesting, but it's also a backway advertisement that I wanted to throw out there for AAA 24, so AAA 24. I had no idea this existed until a few weeks ago, but I've been watching the Friendship Blu-ray on Amazon
Yeah.
because I want to add it to my collection. And for push came to shove, and I ended up going to A24's website, and I found out they have this monthly subscription program called
Yeah.
AAA24.
And they like
And
give
I
you a
thought,
free ticket to one of their movies or something like that.
yeah, yeah. So it's $10
I
a
hate the
month.
name, by the way.
Yeah, it's weird. It's a weird name, but it's $10 a month. You get a free ticket to every A24 movie. It's opening weekend. You get a $5 credit to their store every month. I've seen the birthday gifts they send out. They're pretty cool. You get a 10% discount at their store. You get a subscription design, which is like this little magazine thing for movies. I'm underselling it. It's more artsy than that. But they also do like giveaways and stuff. I got a text message the other day saying, send us a picture of your A24 Blu-rays and maybe we'll help you finish your collection. So I'm assuming they like sent Blu-rays to people. I doubt I will get one because it took me 6 hours to respond. But yeah, it's turned out to be a pretty good deal. The one thing that's kind of fishy is that the movies don't come with a digital copy anymore. But if you are part of AAA24 and you buy the Blu-ray from them, they give you access to it on their app.
But you have to be subscribed to do that.
So I looked on, according to Reddit, as long as you are a member of AAA24 when you buy the movie, it'll still show up for you. I've not tested that myself, but somebody on Reddit said that.
So if you canceled, it would still be there, is what you mean?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
I got you.
as long as you were a member whenever you bought it, is what they said. So I don't know, man. They don't need my endorsement, but this is a newer thing that I think that they've just gotten off the ground. And as far as bang for your buck goes, if you plan to buy Blu-rays from them, which I think I'm going to going forward, they seem to be trying to do their own like Criterion collection thing with what they're putting out now.
The Friendship one is very intriguing because I know that they have a lot of really good bonus features and stuff like that.
Yeah.
There's an extended scene in the garage that I definitely want to check out.
Yeah, and so that's how you get access to some of those extras
Yeah.
too. So I don't know, man. $10 a month isn't anything to scoff at, but because you get the $5 credit every month too, if you're again in 6 months you get a free Blu-ray essentially. So I don't know.
So they
it might
roll
be worth
over?
it. Yeah, you. I assume.
Okay.
I'm going to be disappointed if they don't. I should probably look into that. I assume that they would roll over month to month. If not, that might change my plug here. But yeah, I don't know, man. It's been kind of a cool thing to join.
Yeah, I've considered it. I don't know how often I would use the free ticket though. So that would be, I mean, it's an A24 movie. So realistically in Evansville, Indiana, it's not going to be like I'm going to be in a crowded theater opening weekend for an A24 movie. So that might be more my speed. But yeah, it's definitely something I've been interested in. Because I think if I remember correctly, I think originally they were planning on having the ticket thing and they launched it without the ticket thing, and they just recently added it. And that's actually how I found out about it, was because I saw something on social media. They were like, oh yeah, you can finally get a free ticket now. And I was like, that actually sounds pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, I have AMC stubs, but even if like Brittany wants to go see an A24 movie with me, I can get a ticket for her now. Like, so is the Smashing Machine. We were just talking about that. That comes out in a few weeks. I'll have a free ticket to that.
Yeah, that's dope because then you can use A-list for her. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, man. All right, that's all I had for nerd news.
All right, so as I mentioned earlier, we are going to be reviewing Spinal Tap 2, The End Continues, which of course is a sequel to the 1984 mockumentary comedy. This movie, as well as the first movie, was directed by Rob Reiner. It follows the members of the legendary metal group Spinal Tap, played again by Christopher Guest, Michael McKean, and Harry Schaefer. Shire, sorry, who haven't spoken to each other in years as they prepare for one last one last concert per their contract. It's getting late, and I'm starting to to fade a little bit. So excuse me.
I'm not smiling at you. I'm smiling at the joke that they had to do it because of contractual obligations.
Oh
but,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But also my reading is pretty poor for almost a 40-year-old. I should be a better out loud reader. Anyways, so as I mentioned earlier with the paper, I'm not a huge fan of legacy sequels. So obviously sequels that come out decades after the original movie, which this certainly is the case with this sequel. And also with this particular movie, like it's a sequel to a movie that is just kind of one of those movies where they caught lightning in a bottle. Certainly not everyone's going to really like the first Spinal Tap movie, but I think it's one of the funniest movies of all time. It's one of my favorite comedies of all time. And much like I said with Greg Daniels in The Paper, was I hesitant about this movie being a legacy sequel? Sure. But if I'm going to give anyone the benefit of the doubt, just like I gave Greg Daniels the benefit of the doubt with The Paper, I'm going to give these guys the benefit of the doubt with this sequel.
Yeah, I think I was in the same place. I saw the trailer, or at least one of the trailers. It made me chuckle. I've seen these guys out doing press for the movie and character, which these interviews have been really funny. Obviously, tons of talent there. So I think like what you said is fair. Like I had concerns. It's a legacy sequel. Legacy sequels have a pretty bad track record, but it's hard to discount a Rob Reiner directed movie. And obviously 3 comedic geniuses on top of that. So I was hopeful that it would deliver some laughs and it wouldn't tarnish, what we got, 40 years ago? Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah, man, I was definitely excited. And this is another thing that my wife and I, it's a movie that we both really, really enjoy. And so it was kind of one of the rare times I actually went and saw a movie with somebody else. Was we went and saw this on Monday night, and well, I don't want to give away my review, but we had a good time. We didn't enjoy it as much as the people behind us who thought every fucking thing was the funniest thing they'd ever heard before. And as a amateur comedian, they were like laughing at the setup to the joke, and I was like, you guys you're literally stepping on the punchline of the joke because you're laughing. There's no way you could hear the punchline. Anyways, I digress. We had a good time watching this movie. So let's dive into this review. This first segment of our main topic is just kind of a general overview. We call it broad strokes. So how'd you feel about Spinal Tap 2, The End Continues?
Funny enough, before we started recording, we were lamenting about how much we disliked rock biopics at this point.
Yes.
Especially with it becoming more of a trendy thing. And because it's become such a trendy thing, even though this is not a biopic, it's a mockumentary, it felt like this was very timely in a lot of ways. Sure. There are a lot of aging rock bands out there that are trying to keep it going for better or for worse. And so this is an interesting humorous reflection of that. And you kind of gave away what you felt a little bit, and it sounds like we're going to be on the same page because, is this Spinal Tap from 1984? Is this is it going to stay in pop culture like Turning It Up to 11 did? No, it's not going to reach the legacy of that movie, but was it funny and fun and something that I'll for sure watch again? Absolutely. I thought that the laughs per minute in this movie were great. obviously there's a lot of improv that goes into a movie like this, and that's always super impressive to me. But and I always have to remind myself when I watch the first one that these guys aren't British either.
Yeah.
And they do these characters so convincingly. And so I just think this movie has a really good pacing up until the end. It's like a perfect time, has a perfect running length for what it's doing, and yeah, it does just enough that I had a super good time with it. The jokes landed for me, and so that's all I really wanted from this movie to begin with.
Yeah, I already kind of spoiled a little bit a couple of minutes ago. I really enjoyed this movie. I was really surprised by what this film was. So I kind of went into this movie thinking it was going to be kind of a fish out of water sort of thing, like these old, like over the hill rockers, kind of out of their prime, trying to get one more bite at the apple and not really like understanding how things work nowadays. And Spinal Tap 2 didn't want to be that movie. That's not what this movie was at all. It was actually quite sweet. Like it was sweeter than that. I mean, the first film, in that movie, they're this successful rock band that time is passing them by in real time. Like as we are seeing them, they are starting their tour, and they're riding in limos, they're staying in these really nice hotels, and as the movie goes on, they're like gigs are dropping, and they're having to share like really crummy motel rooms, and like all this shit is happening. They go to a autograph session and nobody shows up, and like time is literally passing them by as we're watching the documentary. And so they kind of already did those bits in the first movie. And so what this movie is like, now with the benefit of hindsight, the band is appreciated and celebrated again. And this movie is more about them kind of finding their love for the music and each other again, while they're being forced to come together after not talking to each other again. And it has its legacy sequel issues. I do think that they kind of bring some characters back from the first movie that I don't think necessarily needed to be brought. Like they make a big deal to bring some of these characters back that I just don't think they really needed to bring them back. There's also, it's not Happy Gilmore 2, but there are a couple of like music cameos, like Elton John has a cameo in this movie. Like there's kind of prolonged stuff like that which worked. Like the Paul McCartney stuff was really funny, but there's a couple of scenes like that where it kind of feels like some of that is just to pad out the runtime. Like you mentioned, the pacing of this movie, just like the pacing of the first movie, is this movie is like an hour and 20 minutes long. Like it knows what it is, it gets in, it kind of does what it wants to do, and then it gets the fuck out. But there are a couple of moments for me at least that kind of felt a little like they needed to hit that 120 mark, and so they threw in a couple of things that just to kind of fill that stuff out. And but outside of that small nitpick, this is a very, very funny movie, and we'll get to the comedy in its own segment here coming up. But like, it was a very funny movie with some surprising heart to it. I really enjoyed some of the stuff between Nigel and David, which we'll get to here in a second. Like them kind of coming back together, really kind of hit my heartstrings a little bit. Like I didn't expect that from this movie. I just expected it to be a fun little like improv comedy, and it was a little bit more like, I mean, it's nothing to write home about, but like it was a lot more than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, agree.
All right, so as far as the story, as Tyler already said, and as I mentioned earlier as well, this movie is, I imagine, almost 90% improv. It's like Curb Your Enthusiasm, where they just like, here's what needs to happen at the end of the scene. How you guys get there is up to you. And so it's kind of hard to really come up with story beats, because it's like the scenes don't really just kind of happen. Like shit just kind of happens in this movie. And there's like an outline, but that's pretty much it. So I kind of just, it works because there's three members of the band. And so we usually do three story beats. So let's just start by talking about Nigel.
Yeah, I mean, and as I was watching this movie, I was I was thinking like, okay, how are we gonna do a story here? So would you say Nigel's the main character, or would you say David is, or would you say it's all three?
This is going to kind of step on what I was going to talk about with Derek, but Derek is obviously the lesser of the
Sure.
three. I mean,
Okay.
I think it's more of a Nigel, and I mean the first one is kind of like this too. It's more of a Nigel and David story,
Yeah.
and Derek kind of takes a back seat with a lot of stuff. But personally, I mean, I think this is definitely more of a Nigel story.
So the one thing that differentiates the characters for me is obviously they each have a unique backstory to what they've been up to since the 80s. And Nigel has been running a cheese and guitar shop, which was really funny. There was some like it sounds stupid and it is stupid, but it resulted in some really great improv between him and Rob Reiner, the Marty character. But anyways, I digress. I think that Nigel is probably the character that has the biggest chip on his shoulder in this movie for a lot of reasons. And you alluded to, the stuff that goes on between him and David. And I don't know that I think that it was as emotional or dramatic as maybe you were alluding to, but I still, I appreciate that even though at its core that this movie's silly and it's all about the jokes and it's all about improvising funny things, that they still have that heart there. You got to think about the fact that they talk about a few times that these characters have known each other since they were little kids.
Yeah.
And now these are like late 70-year-old men. And so even just wrapping your head around like that lifetime of friendship and what they've gone through and watching them kind of hit those beats throughout the movie resonated.
Yeah, and I do want to kind of level set a little bit. Like I said in broad strokes, it's like it's not a huge part of this movie. It's still these wacky characters and these great improv guys in a room just riffing jokes. And I did watch the blue. I do own the first movie on Blu-ray, and we rewatched this, and then we watched all the outtakes. And there's so much shit that they didn't use in the first movie, and I'm assuming it's the case for this movie as well. So it's like they're just riffing the entire time, which is, for somebody that's, improv is not something that I'm super great at. So like I can really respect the fact that they're able to do it and be able to do it at such a high level. So the story itself is not the most important thing. It's definitely the comedy for sure. But like there are moments, and I think it was just my expectations going into the movie. There are moments, especially with Nigel, where he's like having those FaceTime moments with his girlfriend or wife. They're not super clear about the relationship, and then like David, him and David kind of having this like weird relationship because there's something that they like, oh, we had a falling out, but they don't really say like what that is until the towards the end of the movie. And I will say that moment, it ends up being a very funny moment with Derek at the very end of the movie. But it was like one of my favorite parts of the whole movie as far as the comedy is concerned. But like that particular thing, like the actual, when you find out what happened, wasn't that like that huge of a reveal. But there is a moment right before they're about to go on stage that's really touching, and they flash back to the first movie, and they kind of show a really cool scene between the two of them. And yeah, it's just that part worked for me because I was surprised by the little bits of heart that are sprinkled throughout this movie.
Yeah, don't agree.
All right, so that was kind of my bit about David as well. I don't know if you have any more for him.
No, just that, to go back to the running theme about what they've been doing since, I thought that his bit was also funny, where he's been doing like the music for when you're on hold, and he says,
oh
he
yeah,
got a holdie.
for sure.
Yeah,
I love when when they were in the room and he has this huge studio and he's like, no, I do it all on this MacBook.
Maybe I'm skipping to the comedy, but yeah.
Yeah, we're kind of spoiling that a little bit, but
yeah.
And then we could do Derek really quickly.
Yeah, I think that you alluded to it earlier. He did kind of seem like the odd man out a little bit.
For sure.
And I don't want to make excuses for the movie because it could very well not be the case. But I do know that he's the older of the three, and he seemed a little bit more frail in the movie than they did,
Sure.
like sitting down a lot. And, nothing against the guy. He's 82 years old, and apparently the voice of Ned Flanders, which I don't think I realized. But yeah, he's definitely takes a back seat to the other two. But when he's on screen, I think they make the most of it for the most part. Like, he comes in with his zingers and his moments, but it's not like his character grows a whole lot in this movie.
Yeah, I love the idea. First of all, I love his backstory. You've already mentioned that they all have the little backstory of like what they've been doing, and the fact that he has a glue museum is really funny. And then he makes like a really kind of touching like metaphor for the fact that he's like the bassist, and these guys are such a creative force, and he's kind of the glue that keeps the band together. And I thought that was kind of cute and to make the reference to him having this glue museum. Also, again, kind of stepping on the toes of our comedy segment where he gets the fucking glue stuck up his nose. That was really funny. So that got me. I can't see that like a reliable site is selling one right now, but I really want the stick to it museum t-shirt like that he has that he's wearing. I really want one so fucking bad. I was thinking that as I was watching the movie. I was like, that shirt rules. I want one of those shirts. But anyways, that's beside the point. Like I loved Derek the little bit that you get from him, but again, he is, out of the three characters, he's definitely the one that kind of takes the back seat. Again, I don't want to ruin the surprise at the end of the movie, but what he reveals about the issue between him, Nigel, and David is literally the hardest I laughed during the movie. And that's saying a lot because I laughed a lot during this movie.
Yeah, it's just like so nonchalant in the credits too. It's perfect.
I was literally, again, going back to what I was saying about the paper, it's like it was one of those moments where I literally was crying, laughing so hard. And I know that's like, I'm not being hyperbolic. I was literally crying.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so we can be kind of quick with the performances just because, I mean, they're all really good. Like you said earlier, they're not actually English. So they're doing this accent in these characters, improving all this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think to its credit, when the original This Is Spinal Tap came out, people were fooled by it in a way because, the internet was not a thing. Like, so you had to take things for face value. Pop culture wasn't as defined as it is now. And so the fact that they fooled people back then is a testament, but they fooled. I completely forgot they weren't British until I got done with this movie, and so just huge kudos to them and their improv skills because it's sharp.
Yeah, it's ridiculous how good they are at that. Like just being able to make up all of these funny bits. I mean, there's so many things that we'll get into here in a second that I just thought was really, really funny, and the fact that they're just able to do all of this stuff. And it's definitely impressive. I will say the only performance issue I had was I felt like Rob Reiner was in this movie a little bit more than he was in the first movie. And I mean, he's fine. I mean, he's not bad. It's just that I was like, less Rob Reiner, please. Like, I just was like, give me the main guys. Like, you can be the documentary guy off camera, but like, I don't need to see you on camera as much as it felt like he was in this movie. So that was my only concern about it.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. There's one other person I wanted to call out. So Valerie Franco plays Dee Dee Crockett, who becomes their new drummer.
I'm so glad. I was literally trying to look up her name as I was, because I didn't write it down.
I imagine being like, I assume she was in her 20s or 30s, and stepping into this world and then being expected to be up against like these great improvers. I don't know how much of her stuff was strictly scripted, but she held her own, and she's a hell of a drummer too. So
yeah, she was awesome.
She was great.
So I definitely appreciated that for sure. All right, so we've kind of danced around it a lot. Not very good, by the way. I mean, we basically flat out said that this movie is really funny, but let's talk about the comedy bits.
Yeah, I mean the bits are great. There's so many, and I know that there are lines I missed because, again, it's just the jokes are coming so rapidly.
Yeah,
Like
for sure.
whenever you have this many jokes in a movie, some of them are bound to hit, but in this movie, most of them, I would say, land in some regard. So I wrote down a couple of the lines that made me laugh the most. One was so they're in New Orleans and they're staying in a ghost tour house and they're talking about how they have to do the tours at night. And I
Yeah.
think it's Nigel that says in the daytime ghosts are just rumors.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but
I
that
thought
one
you were
had
gonna
me.
go with the ongoing bit where they're having dinner and
Oh
like the
yeah,
ghost tour goes through the house all the time. Like, I thought that
yeah,
was fucking
yeah.
hilarious.
Yeah, that one's good. I think David says at one point, "I am Springsteen going on Spreventine." Just it's fucking stupid. Yeah, just there's others, but yeah, the gist of it is that it's a feel good movie, and you'll leave with a smile on your face.
There was one bit in particular that I laughed really, really hard. It was actually the hardest I'd laughed until the Derek moment that we won't spoil here. And it was Nigel was fucking around with his pedals, which I thought that whole bit was kind of like the turn it up to 11. They didn't want to do they didn't want to do
Yeah,
the exact bit again, but it's kind of the very similar type of bit. And there was one point where David is getting pissed at Nigel about his pedals, and then he hits one and it's just like this weird sound, and David says, "Oh, we need the Japanese woman getting stabbed," and Nigel just goes, "Well, she's Vietnamese," or something like that. And I was like, I like fucking lost it because I was like, that was such a random thing to say in that situation, like that he was trying to justify it by that, and I just thought that was so fucking funny. So yeah, there was a lot of those little things, and I really look forward to seeing this movie again. To much like the first one, like you said, there's so many bits. I mean, they're just trying to do bits the entire movie. And so I rewatched it not too long ago, and I mean, it was just less than a week ago, and it had been a while since I watched it, and there was stuff that I picked up on that I never picked up on before. And so it's like one of those movies where it's so much crammed into like an hour and 20 minutes that it's hard to pick up. And then there's just random shit that gets left in the movie that never gets explained. And then I just
yeah,
watched like an hour plus of outtakes, and there's just like shit that like most movies would try to cut that out because it doesn't make sense, like chronologically or whatever. But they just left it in. Like they have like herpes on their lips at one point in the first movie, and they just never explain it. But there's an outtake where they kind of explain why it's like that, but they never explain it in the real movie. So there's a ton of that. So I definitely look forward to seeing this on Blu-ray, or just to kind of see some of the outtakes.
yeah. They just released This Is Spinal Tap on Blu-ray today under Criterion.
Oh, really?
So I think it had a Criterion DVD release at one point, but it's not been released on Criterion and Blu-ray. So it got a 4K and regular Blu-ray release today. I had pre-ordered it. I usually only buy Criterion's during the sale, but
Yeah.
knowing that this was going to come out right around the second one, I wanted to get it faster.
Yeah, man, it's definitely, I just bought it on Blu-ray, so I don't know if I could justify buying it
Sure, sure.
again. But yeah, it's definitely something I might think about the next time that they have because I know Barnes and Noble has their sale.
Yes. Life hack or nerd hack or whatever. Amazon matches those prices whenever Barnes and Noble does it. So
Oh, really?
if you don't feel slimy about fucking Barnes and Noble and giving your money to Amazon instead, you'll get it quicker if you have Prime. So
I mean, it's whatever. It's still a big corporation. Barnes and
yeah,
Noble
for
is
sure,
is smaller than Amazon, but it's all, I'm giving my money to a millionaire CEO either way.
for sure.
All right. So out of 5 stars, what'd you give the Spinal Tap to?
This was a tough one. I think whenever the movie was over and I was still riding that high, I had settled on a 4 out of 5 because the first one's a 4.5 out of 5 to me, and this doesn't reach the first one's level, obviously. But I think that I've kind of come down to a 3.5 out of 5 on it over the last few days. Like it does everything it needs to do, everything it's supposed to do. It's just it's a very specific type of movie.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's really well put. I don't really have much to add because I'm gonna give it the same rating as well. It's just, it is exactly what I wanted it to be and a little bit more, but it's still a Spinal Tap movie. Like it's still a very specific thing. Like you said, it does have a little bit more heart than I expected, but it doesn't have a ton. And so it is what it is. But it's a very enjoyable movie.
For sure.
I almost, and I know that this is kind of not the point, but I almost wanted to give it 4 just so I could have an excuse to put it in my top 10. 3.5, it's not going to make my top 10.
Yeah, yeah. I already plugged it into my ongoing list, and I think I justified it getting up to number 14. But I don't know, man. My heart might take over by the time the year's done.
Yeah, I mean, by the time the year's, well, I don't know. Physical releases have been coming out a little bit quicker than they used to, but I don't know how quickly I'll be able to see this again. And so maybe if I see it before the year is over and I like it more, if I pick up on some of the bits like we were talking about earlier, maybe I bump it up to a 4. But I mean, I'm kind of in that same general area. I think it'd be like 12 or 13. You essentially have to be 4 stars to make my top, the exclusive club of my top 10 on Letterbox for my 40 followers or whatever on Letterbox. So yeah, it's pretty much not. I mean, it's definitely, if unless I bump it up to 4 stars, it's definitely not going to make my top 10.
Got it.
All right, so I didn't think this through when I thought about this nerd favorite that we were going to come right off of Spinal Tap 2 and we're gonna do a complete 180 for nerd favorite. And this is obviously not a great nerd favorite topic, like it's not a happy one, but obviously earlier today, I'm sure many of you have heard by the time this episode comes out, but Robert Redford, the storied actor, but also he was a great director as well, passed away earlier today at age 89. So I thought it would be touching to kind of put a cap on this episode again, bit of a 180 because it's a sadder story, obviously. But I did kind of want to talk about our favorite film of Robert Redford. So you could answer that question however you want to answer it. Obviously, he has had a great career not only as an actor. I think that's probably the thing that he's most known for is his acting chops, but also he was a great director as well. And I mean, he does have a great filmography. There are a few different things that I was kind of like considering. Obviously, he's in Endgame and Winter Soldier, which is more our alley as far as this podcast is concerned. But he's not really. Those don't feel like they're Robert Redford films, even though I do think he plays a very good character in that particular movie. But for me, even though there's definitely a lot more famous movies that he's known for, especially being a baseball fan, you'd think I would immediately gravitate towards The Natural. I also really like All the President's Men as well. It's also a fantastic movie. It doesn't feel Watergate doesn't feel like it's as big of a deal anymore because of the shit that's a certain someone gets away with nowadays. But that's beside the point. It's still a really interesting movie. But I'm actually going to kind of go out on a limb for my answer because it's a movie I think maybe I've brought up randomly on this podcast before. We've done over 500 episodes, so it's definitely possible. But there was a movie that I used to watch because it was always on the movie channel every couple of months. They would rotate it in, called The Last Castle. And I don't know if it's been a very long time since I watched it. I don't know if it still holds up, but I remember really liking it as a kid. I'm looking at it on IMDb, and it does have a very nice rating of 6.9. So that's pretty good. So I don't know if it exactly holds up, but I mean, definitely has a good rating on IMDb for whatever that's worth. But essentially, Robert Redford plays this disgraced general that gets sent to a military prison. I don't remember what for, but I mean, they do it in a way where he kind of like takes the blame for something bad that happens, but he didn't really like they kind of make it seem again. It's been a long time since I watched the movie, but and then James Gandolfini, who also tragically passed away several years ago. He's kind of the quote unquote bad guy, but he's not really the bad guy. He plays the warden of this military prison, and so that's kind of an interesting. Mark Ruffalo is in it as well. I didn't realize that, or I didn't remember that until I pulled it up the IMDb right now. So there's definitely some really good actors in this movie, and I'd be curious to watch it again just because I remember liking it a lot as a kid. But yeah, that's gonna be my pick for his best film, or at least my favorite film of his.
Yeah, I would like to say that's a good one, but I've not seen it. And this nerd favorite's exposing me because I have not seen most of Robert Redford's movies, and
Oh,
I
really?
don't know why. Yeah, I'm not sure why his filmography just kind of slipped through the cracks for me. I'm aware of the powerhouse he was and what he's done, but I've never even seen Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, so I don't
Hmm.
even really
I prefer The
scrape the
Sting.
surface.
The Sting is very, very good.
I've heard good things about The Sting. Like that's been something that I've considered watching before, but unfortunately, unless I want to go with the Marvel movie, I'm gonna have to go with All the President's Men. And I don't want to saying unfortunately is not fair there because it is a really good movie. I haven't seen it in a while, so I'm not sure how much it holds up at this point. But great performances. It's directed by the same guy that did 12 Angry Men, and what else did he do? He did To Kill a Mockingbird, Sophie's Choice, some other things. So great director. But yeah, solid performances from both him and Dustin Hoffman.
Yeah, it's a great movie. I love those types of like uncovering the secret, like good reporting journalism movie. That's one of the reasons why I love Spotlight as much as I do. It's a very similar movie, and so I definitely dig that type of stuff. And so this is kind of the gold standard for those movies.
Cool. Yeah.
All right, so I did kind of bring down the vibe of the episode, but I mean that's going to be it for episode 527 of the Nerd You're Looking For podcast. We hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, subscribe, rate, review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, basically whatever podcast you listen to us on right now. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Those are both at the Nerds Podcast. Check out all of our content on our website, thenerdspodcast.com, and finally email us at thenerdyourlooking4@gmail.com. For Patrick Kuhn,
Tyler Hunt.
we are the nerds you're looking for. Take it easy, nerds.
Later, guys.